Red Hood in the Batman Arkham series is one of the most tragic tales the city of Gotham has to tell. It's a story about a headstrong hero who feels obligated, feels a responsibility to assist the Dark Knight in the war against criminals and preserving human life. However, after being kidnapped, tortured, and suffered some of the worst pain a child can endure, his perspective on morality and human life would be shifted into something much more sinister and blurred. Our story with the Red Hood begins with a young man called Jason Todd. Jason was the first accomplice of Batman and served to be a very worthy and capable ally. However, Jason's most prevalent flaw in his approach to stopping crime was his recklessness and lack of self-control. Deep down, Jason always found Batman's methods ineffective and a solution that would only work in the short term. Throughout his short career of working with the Dark Knight, he would question his methods more and more, slowly deviating from the hero's path, approaching something much more dark. Jason from the beginning never really was completely on board with the idea of no killing, because his life prior to stopping crime was filled with nothing but pain and suffering. He was born to a family of drug addicts who would routinely abuse him both physically and mentally throughout his early childhood. His orphanage was filled with children who severely bullied him, and his early teens were motivated by crime, just so he could scrape by and survive in this world that has treated him worse than the murderers that patrol the very streets he finds himself on. All this pain and trauma would slowly begin to forge this moral ambiguity, because how could someone so innocent, so vulnerable, be subjected to something so unimaginably cruel and sadistic with almost no moments of levity or peace from the torture that is his daily life? Jason's many years of loneliness and solitude would be briefly restored by a young billionaire named Bruce Wayne, who would recruit Jason under his wing and adopt him as his son. Throughout the many months of this loving relationship, Jason would slowly begin to ease off the demons of rage and retaliation and begin to adopt Bruce's methods of preservation and pacifism. However, a voice still echoed at the back of his mind. How could this evil, this scum, go unpunished and receive no consequences for the sadistic actions they wrath upon the innocence of Gotham's people? However, he always held back his rage, held back his pain, until one unfortunate evening where he would lose hope in the concept of heroism and what it means to be a savior. An evening where he would realize that his suffering has only just begun. Batman and Jason's last night together was one of betrayal and deviation from the path of good, as he comes to the conclusion that the Joker must pay the price. Must suffer the consequences for blowing up a school full of innocent children, must suffer the consequences for being evil. In this moment, he chooses the role of executioner and begins his journey towards Arkham Asylum, where the building designed to heal and cure would become Jason's personal nightmare of isolation and betrayal. After arriving at Arkham Asylum, Jason is beaten by the Joker and restrained as he is carried away to his own personal cell designed to break and torture the mind of the most undeserving. His daily routine consisted of almost no food and no water, as he is tied to a chair restrained in barbed wire, beaten with sharp and blunt objects such as crowbars, pistols, and other melee weapons, until his red suit that symbolizes solitude was covered in the blood of the Boy of Wonder who wanted to do nothing but defend innocence. During his momentary breaks of physical torture, the Joker would come down and taunt him and implant a hatred towards the Dark Knight. A seed that would spark a vengeance towards his own father figure that let him rot away in the dungeons of Arkham. This suffering would continue for over a year of beatings and tortures, a year of psychological torment turning his one and only friend against him. A year of breaking and destroying the mind of the young man who had such potential to be a symbol of hope and prosperity towards the people of Gotham that gazed upon his symbol. However, this reality would be fractured by the Clown Prince of Crime, who lost his empathy and humanity to his own personal sufferings. After Jason endures all of Joker's tests and sessions of torture, he is eventually put out of his misery as Joker stages a death where he shoots him in the chest, seemingly ending his suffering. However, all this trauma would manifest into a new persona, a persona fueled with vengeance and rage, all directed towards the man he's been convinced was responsible for everything he endured in that asylum. A persona called the Arkham Knight. The Arkham Knight is nothing short of a capable warrior that has the combat, predator, and perseverance to endure any physical trial that opposes him. Throughout the events of Batman Arkham Knight, Jason overpowers and defeats Bruce on multiple occasions, each time confronted with the feeling of betrayal and confusion, until he finally reveals his face, branded with the letter belonging to the arch-nemesis Batman refused to kill on several occasions. In this moment, Jason and Bruce battle an emotional conflict where the Arkham Knight persona is slowly broken down more and more through each brief interaction through the encounter. The fight ends with Bruce and Jason flying off a gargoyle as his mask is destroyed, revealing the scared and confused child behind the armor. In a desperate cry for clarity, he asks Bruce why he left him alone and helpless, why he never made a thorough attempt to find and rescue his one and only son.
I'm sorry.
You left me to rot in that abandoned wing of Arkham for over a year! With him.
It's not too late. We can fix this. Together.
After this exchange, Jason flees the area and creates a new identity for himself, someone that can execute the villains deserving of such a punishment. Someone who can do what Batman and any symbol adopting the hero's judgment won't. In this battle, Jason's brief career as the Arkham Knight ends, however this defeat would spark the ashes for a much more intimidating and demanding presence. A presence that makes the criminals of Gotham fear not just for their careers, but also for their very lives. Jason Todd's last heroic action we see in Arkham Knight is saving Batman as he's unmasked and exposed by the Harbinger of Fear, tying up loose ends and abandoning the rage, hatred, and pain in a pursuit to become something greater, something stronger. The reason I love the Red Hood character so much is because he represents something I absolutely love. It's a story about a man who endures some of the greatest pain and trauma one could experience and manifests it into a violent urge to destroy those deserving of his judgment. However, it's also a story about a hero, manipulated and influenced down a path that completely deviates away from the one he was placed on by his father. I can't stop wondering what Jason's journey would have been like if he never went to the asylum. Perhaps he could have learned to adopt Batman's methods and find peace in his teachings. Perhaps he would have learned to forgive the society that subjected him to all the punishments and trauma he wasn't deserving of. However, perhaps on the other hand, if he killed the Joker and fulfilled his urge to execute the Clown Prince of Crime, it would have automatically sent him down the path of the anti-hero in a pursuit of justice. Jason Todd is such an interesting character because we can completely understand and empathize with his motivations. However, the further you dig into this character, the tragic nature of his path becomes more and more clear. Because no matter how many villains he kills, how many criminals he executes, that trauma and suffering will always lead him down a selfish path of violence, trying to find answers in the lifeless corpses he leaves behind in a pursuit to find peace.